Been a long day. Been a long week for that matter. All right, so we are live. Vinny, Pixel Pusher 5001. Take it away, buddy.
All right. Hello, everybody. I am so glad that these rooms are a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more interactive, because you are going to need it. No, I'm going to need it. The reason I say that is, let me be totally clear that I am by absolutely the farthest thing ever from an engineer at this, or even good or skilled at this. It was a design I saw a few years back, decided, you know what? I have about 14,000 pixels that need pushed into Biscoyo strips. I want to build one of those. So I did. I tinkered a little bit, kind of stole the design, tinkered a little bit for what worked with me, didn't know what I was doing, learned along the way, and it worked just fine. So when I go through some of these things, you 100% may see things, likely will see things that you'll go, why didn't you do it this way? It may be because you have more knowledge than I do, and I didn't think of the idea which you have, which is better than my idea. So that's why this interactive style, by all means, if you have a better idea or a better way to have done this, please interject it, because instead of this being a class of me teaching you how to do it because it's the right way, instead I'll just show you what I did, and hopefully from that you get ideas on how you want to do it. And I can show you a few things that if I did it again, I would have done it differently. So anyway, here we go. Brian, it would be okay if I showed a YouTube video? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Because yep. I figured.
Let me give you. Let me give you co-host.
I want to play the video that kind of gives the walkthrough of it, because with all of this, that video actually the camera moves around and you can see things from it, rather than me trying to explain the parts and pieces with this camera.
Yep, you got a co-host. You should be able to share.
Okay,
make sure you do it with sound.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna watch this video first, and then we'll go from there.
And you forgot to put your number in.
What? I don't have a number.
You don't have a number?
No, I'm a rebel. I just show up to these things.
Right on. Works for me.
Hey guys, so I will put this in two quick parts. One, just explaining the machine as I currently have it, and then I'll make a second part with
I was fat even 2 years ago.
If you're building your own, some things that I would change or improvements I'd make. So first off, I have Maggie here. Very simple. It's not a fancy air compressor. This is a cheap one that I picked up at Menards, the cheapest model I think they maybe had in this size. It doesn't have to be special, as long as it has this one special feature. You need to make sure it has a variable pressure output. You need to be able to control at what pressure that you send your air output so that you can control your cylinder. I will put together a parts list too, but because I currently have two pedals, I just simply have a T here, two hoses. They run down to the pedals, and then a set of hoses runs from the pedals up to the cylinder. Simple welded stand here. If anybody needs it, talk to me. If you want to build one, you want to build it just like this, hit me up, let me know. I can help you out. We'll weld you a stand or something up so that at least that part of it's done if you don't have a welder. And then I chose to use a metal tubing here with a 1/2 inch hole. 1/2 inch I found works about right to fit in there, gives it pressure. Now, I originally went with, and this is a crappy mock-up, but this was an idea of having a channel to let things run through. Didn't go well, didn't work well. I found that this seemed to be the best. I use a roller on this side just so as I'm feeding through, it just continues to roll down. I put my Biscoyo strips up there, and so it just funnels through and I can just punch and punch. So that's how it's built. It's very simple. I'll give a tips and tricks video next. Thanks.
Look at that. All right. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Y'all can go have dinner now. All right. So actually, I'm going to just follow that up quickly with the 3-minute tips and tricks video, because you'll get more information on what I would change from there. And then we can kind of talk through this on what I learned along this process, and we can answer questions and see if we can't, come up with a collective better design. Also, all of the links to the videos, as well as all of the parts list, is available on the Think Tank files section. Think Tank files section has this PDF with all of these links to exactly what I bought. Now, remember, this was 2 years ago. I hope these links are still good, but you'll get the idea from it.
A few tricks. The cylinder, I have found that I'm not in love with this cylinder. I think it's too small to do this the right way. So I've actually just purchased on Amazon a bigger one, and I'll share that with you. A bigger bore size should give you more pressure, because I think the key to this working effectively is not so much as hitting the pixel, but more squeezing it into place. I think it gives you more accuracy. I'll have Maggie kind of zoom in on this here. As you put your pixel in, so see, if you're not right on, you get that. But if you get it in the right position and just apply your pressure, you can see it more kind of squeezes rather than hits. And I think that gives you a better result. And away you go. I also found that my second pedal, which is my kind of cylinder up pedal, is totally useless. You can see here that the pedals up and down, but I found that it's useless because if I put a pixel in, I just run it back up by hand and move on to the next pixel. And move on. And away we go. Another tips and tricks would be definitely to use these type of things. If you don't, it can get bunched up. The rollers work nicely. The other thing, as Eric kind of mentioned before, if you use a double action foot pedal, one that actually applies pressure, pressing it in applies pressure to fire the cylinder down, releasing it sends pressure up to fire the cylinder back up. Now that would work great too. That would be just fine. It defeats the purpose of two pedals, but like I said, I don't use a second pedal anyway. Those are the tips I have. Like I said before, I'm not the smartest guy in any room I'm in. This was Eric's design and I just absolutely love it. I built one of my own. If you have a lot of technical questions, he might be a guy to reach out to if you've got specific things that you want to know. Oh, also, the reason I chose to use metal, I don't have the 2x4 around. I felt that the wood was not hard enough, that I actually was starting to cave in my hole. So when I changed to a metal tube, I got a lot better force, and it held my pixels a little bit tighter. So that's what I got for you. Anybody got any questions?
So anyway, that is the build itself. I was starting to work on basically recreating those videos and kind of doing some walkthroughs and trying to find the best way to show everybody that what the thing looked like, and have videos and stuff for it. But I realized just these videos were the best way to do it. So I just left with these. And then I figured, you know what, we could kind of talk through this. I can answer any questions, and maybe between all of us, we can come up with something that would be better that all of you guys could build and use.
I did have a question, not a suggestion. So you mentioned that the plunger, it's better to push the pixel in than stabbing it in the back. Would it be better to find a plunger that's already slightly out so when you fit it under, it doesn't, travel and jam into the back of the pixel?
I guess I don't know. I don't know if those type of cylinders exist.
They do,
Do-
but
do they?
Have you found any problems with like the back of your pixels being dented or cracked or
No.
anything from that?
I haven't. In fact, I even actually, if you see in part of on the bottom of the cylinder here, it is, see, and you can't see it because of the virtual background. It's threaded. Look, hey, Eric, the original maker of this. It's threaded, and I played with a couple different ideas of, putting a nut on there to create a bigger area. And I just felt the cylinder itself, just straight, was better. So, I mean, Eric may have created come up with some better things. I mean, this design was straight stolen from him.
So I started off using an actual hex bolt in mine with the bolt head down. Ended up having to shave the sides of the bolt off. My issue was always twofold. Either one, getting my actual thumb caught inside of it, which hurts really, really, really badly. Or number two, if the pixel wasn't perfectly aligned, we would actually nick the actual wires, damage them, then they would end up tearing. When I had to repush a bunch of stuff last year, I ended up building a little U-shaped piece that threaded in. So I was pushing on the sides of the pixel and the whole top, which kind of made it easier to align it, but then also made it a whole lot harder to nick, actually nick the lines.
And with this, with the cylinder the way it is, I mean, I could measure this on how wide this is. It's about 3/8 size, this little piece that comes down out of the cylinder, but it didn't cause any damage that I've ever found in my pixels. And they've now seen 2 seasons, the 2018 and 2019 seasons. I haven't had any problems with them. So apparently I haven't damaged my pixels at all. The only downside to this particular design compared to some other ones I've seen is this really requires square pixels, which seem like they've been phased out. Like it's just not popular anymore to have the square pixels. But if you got a shit ton of pixels to put in Biscoyo strips, it's a way to go.
I think there was someone out there once that tried making a bullet pixel adapter. I don't think they were ever actually able to get to actually make it work.
Yeah, I've seen some that seem decent, but nothing compared to this. Nothing that was nearly as simple and as quick as this. And with this, I mean, and you can vouch that I can basically sit and put pixels all day with no fatigue.
Yeah, so what did we push? We pushed, let me do the math real fast. We pushed 168 times.
And Vinny, I was just going to chime in here.
Yes.
Just happened to tune in, and just when you're talking about the bullets, but that's kind of where I did with the my take on your build that I went on, since I had to be using bullets, is I kind of offset it. So I basically took a pair of vice grips, set them so they just grip the pixel without squeezing it too hard, and the plunger would go down and hit the vice grips, pushing the bullet down through the strip. And that worked really well, just pretty much as effortlessly as, kind of looked in your video. But it required you having to use like a pixel jig, like one of the ones that Tim Big sells or something like that to hold the strip, but that worked great.
Now, that actually reminded me of something that I learned where we're talking about effortlessly. I did actually learn in my video where you can see close up how it kind of squeezes in place. I learned after the fact that I was using the wrong side of the Biscoyo strip in this video. If I had flipped it over the other side, they squeezed down in there so much easier and smoother. But it really became about not punching the thing, just being nice and letting it squeeze it into place.
Yeah, so we played around with the actual pressure on it first too, and that was the main thing. It's not really how much force you can get to throw it at first. it's almost as if it would hit the pixel, and then like a second or so later, it would actually pop in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we pushed roughly 25,000 square nodes the actual first year. I think we did it about 2 hours a night over the course of about 2 or 3 weeks. So not bad at all.
We had a lady at my work that broke her leg, and she wasn't able to work. So we hired her to punch a lot of these, and she did all of them in about a week. And because with a broken leg, she was able to just sit at the workbench and punch pixels, and so gave her a little income while she was up hurt. Sorry.
Hey, Vinny.
Yes, sir.
Were you able to come up with a solution with your second pedal to bring it back up the way you wanted it to? Because didn't it say that you had a problem with the second pedal?
I mean, the second pedal works just fine, in that the second pedal, sends the pressure, or however that works, sends the pressure to send the cylinder back up. However, like I said, because I learned that it wasn't necessary, it was easier to just push it up as you moved it with the pixels, using the pixel that you just pressed down to then send it back up, because it's so effortlessly to send that back up. There's no constant pressure there that you're fighting. It's very simple. I just found that I was never using the second pedal, even though it still worked just fine.
I have 2 suggestions for you.
Yes.
They have, for the same thing, that the solenoids, they have ones with springs built in that automatically pull it up. And then they have electronic solenoids. If you don't want to go the hydraulic route or the pressure route, they have electronic solenoids that you just put 12 volts to, and it does the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, so as Vinny mentioned in the second video, mine was using an actual double acting pedal. So once you actually let off of it, it would shoot back up.
Yeah, it's there's definitely benefit there, either to the double action or the spring. I do see the benefit of it, but in hindsight, I mean, even if I needed to hose this thing back up to use it again, I still don't know that I necessarily would change to those, because this worked very smoothly. The only thing I wish I would have changed to was a bigger cylinder that could maybe squeeze it a little bit easier.
Well, then that leads to the next question then, because you're talking about the plunger in the back. How did you keep it from going too far down and pushing the pixel too far into the strip?
That was all based on the height. That was some testing and playing. That was all based on the height. Let me show you something here. I have this pulled up. Okay, so maybe not. Yeah, this one will be just fine. Okay, so the height here, right? We measured this so that when this cylinder was all the way down, that it couldn't send the pixel too far or too hard. It's not really a problem as long as you're not like trying to send out full PSI, full pressure, nonstop. We really found that it doesn't take a lot of PSI. So as long as you don't crank it up too far, you're unlikely to cause any problems anyway. But also, I did measure this height based on the cylinder I got, so that when it comes down, it's still like a 1/4 inch above the hole. So it can't really do too much force on the pixel. It stops itself based on its length. I don't know. Did you follow that?
Yeah, it sounds like you use the limited stroke length to your advantage.
Yes, where the cylinder stops because it's out of length.
I'm a pneumatics mechanic.
Oh, so you got way more knowledge in this than I do. I have no clue what I was doing. I straight up just started connecting hoses and like, okay, what's this do? Oh, what's this do?
I've been listening here about 10 minutes. It sounds like you've got it right. I mean, some of your terminology isn't exactly industry, but what you're saying is no.
You can call me an idiot. That's fine.
I'm not.
We're not here for terminology.
Yeah, what you have said though is exactly perfect, but not in industry standard language. But what you have said is correct, where you say you use this how far it travels, which is stroke length. And one of the things Alex just talked about, where you had double acting air valves, where you could have them where you could set them one speed going in each direction also. So you could adjust the speed and or pressure by using the right control valve system.
So now,
I
what's
love
your?
Hold on. I love how nicely he called you an idiot. I'm gonna have to call him next time I call you an idiot.
Yeah, he was
No,
very
no,
nice.
I'm not saying anyone's an idiot, because what he has built here works.
I get
Which
to call
is-
him that because I'm his
And
wife.
that's
Which is very good. I mean, I'm giving you kudos. I'm looking
that's what makes me feel good about it. Like I said,
What
I've
I'm
been very
thinking
clear.
of is, I'm
Oh.
thinking of how can I build the same idea with an arm that's 30 inches long?
And what's the reason that you want that?
Well, if you're going to do a 4x8 sheet and you're going to put 4,000 pixels in it,
Oh, so that you can use it not on strips, but on matrices.
right, like a full-size matrix panel.
Sure.
So let's say if you're going to do 1 inch spacing on a 4x8 sheet, you're only going to be able to reach halfway across the sheet. So how would I set up one that's, and I've been thinking about this. How do I set up an arm that I could put a 4x8 sheet of plywood under, that I could be able to spin the whole sheet around and be able to push every LED so I don't break my fingers? I don't like blisters.
So I actually built one for a guy here locally. I think we had, it was a 30 or 40 inch stroke length. And the only thing we did different was obviously the bar came out that far, and then we sent an upright bar probably 3 or 4 feet up in the air so that we could then angle brace it back to keep the force applied
So
to
you don't-
it, so that when you aren't pushing that arm up, the force is all applied to push the actual pixel down.
Yeah, you're not twisting the upright mast.
Yep, and that's all it was. I mean, it was fairly simple and easy. Otherwise, it was the same design, same everything.
That's same thing. I was trying to figure out how I could build something that I could put a whole sheet underneath and press pixels in.
Yeah, but if you're bending the mast on top, you have so much pressure, you're gonna shatter the pixels anyways.
Well,
But
also,
not really. Yeah, when you've got an arm that's 40 inches long that it's on the end of, it doesn't take much to actually move that arm. So
yeah, because it's like a breaker bar. You're getting so far away, you gain so much. 1 pound of force times 4 feet. You know, that's a lot of pounds.
Yeah.
No, I like your design. It's simplicity. That's what's the best thing.
That'll be for a next year build party. Vinny, you need to start working on that 2x8 sheet so you can rotate.
We have so many to build.
I have an idea.
Move it around with
that
the lever
is-
arm.
Well, I've got the idea that is completely open to, if anybody wants to steal this idea, please do it, because I do not have the means or the brains to actually accomplish this. But imagine basically a CNC machine that punches the pixels in, and it's fed, we just have our pixels basically created in some sort of channel that you, and it comes that way from China, where basically is like a magazine of pixels that you put in the machine, and it's fed, and it just pushes all the pixels in with a CNC.
Yeah, like a machine that would install resistors or capacitors. Just push the pixels right in the board. Yeah, use a tape feeder.
Yeah, like the vision I have in my head looks like a nail gun feeder.
I have a machine at the company I used to work for that took parts that came on a paper tape, and it would cut them off the paper tape and stick them through the board and then bend the wires to the board. And it would do 1 stroke a second. So it's built, and the counter stopped working 10 years ago, and it just keeps running.
The thing I like about this, what you had said earlier, Eric's design here is very simple, and although I don't necessarily completely know what I was doing along the way. The fact of the matter is that it worked. It
Well, that's
worked.
it works. It looks like it works good.
It works
I
simple.
like how you did it. It's really neat.
It's very simple. The only downside to it that I see from the average Joe that some people may not be able to accomplish it is the way I like to do it was with metal. And some people don't know how to weld or don't have a welder, don't want to venture into that. But
you could easily use C clamps to clamp your metal down. You just have to offset it and C clamp it to the table itself.
You could as easily use a 4x4 for a mast, and you could bolt it together, and it would work just as well.
Yeah, I saw a couple of them out there. One guy used Unistrut, and another one just used the garage door slotted track and bolted it all in. So
yeah, like the stuff that's got all the, like the angle iron with all the holes drilled in it.
Yep.
Yeah, that would work great. And what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yep.
And I hate my fingers being sore, and I've pushed a lot of pixels.
Yeah, well, this had to be built because we knew we had, like I said, 14,400 pixels that needed to go in the strip. So we were like, we are 100%. We are building this thing.
Well, you and Eric last year, I watched him a couple of times where he was sitting there at the machine for hours, bumping the pixels in
and singing. Yep, and singing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we did.
Machine.
I think before we built it, we pushed for like 2 or 3 nights and did the math. And we started pushing pixels, I think, for the tree in like late September. And we did the math, and it was going to be July of the next year before we were done. So had to come up with actually something. And then guys were out there doing the actual drill press one. I was like, that's still a lot of work having to manually raise and lower that repeatedly. So.
One thing, like I said, with the welding part of this, anytime people have asked me about building it out of wood or whatever, my response usually is, as much as some people don't want to get into welding, there is an awful lot of things in the Christmas hobby that benefits you if you can make it out of metal. And I encourage everybody to learn how to, if nothing else, simple, basic welding is a skill that will go a long way in this hobby.
Yeah, even if it's just a little 110 wire feed welder, I mean, it's still you're not welding to.
You can pick up a decent welder 110 for $250.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's a lot of really nice little wire feed units out there that you're right. It is a great advantage to be able to stick 2 pieces of metal together permanently.
Yep. Harbor Freight has got some, my in-laws have got a Harbor Freight one that they've never had any problems with. Here,
the flux core style.
Yes. Yep. Flux core MIG welder. If people want an idea of a basic welder, look at something like this. I mean, this is simple starting for a hobbyist that doesn't know what they're doing but wants to learn so they can do simple, basic home stuff. This would be a great option. Things that you want to be looking at, making sure that you can plug it into your 110 outlets, and this flux core. What that means for anybody that doesn't understand that is that the flux, which is the gas that protects the weld, creates a better weld, is built into the wire. So there isn't a separate bottle that creates the gas. It simply happens all at once. The only downside is you get a little bit more splatter with this type of thing. But again, you're not creating showpieces here. You're just functionality.
Yeah, and the spool goes right inside. It's super easy to put in, run the feed through.
Yep. I've got a little one very similar to that. It's not. I've got my big one, which is what I use primarily. But I have this little one, and it's great when people call you up and they need something fixed or done. I can just grab that because I know I can just use it at their house.
Yeah, it's a little better than my welder. It's the size of a Volkswagen. I have a 1989 Miller 375 amp TIG welder.
Okay, that's what I was
But
going to
it's-
ask, if it was a
It's the
stick
size.
welder or what.
No, it's a stick or TIG, but it weighs like 900 pounds. It's not very mobile.
It stays in one spot.
Yeah, I parked it in the corner of the garage. It hasn't moved in 10 years. It's because I can't move it.
Yep.
I've
Are
thought
there
many
any
times
more-
about buying me a MIG welder because they are convenient.
Mm-hmm. I like it. The only thing I had wished when I got a Miller MIG welder with an auto speed setting, which I really like a lot. I wish I had gotten the aluminum upgrade where I can also weld on aluminum. That would have been handy. But
Does it have the attachment point for getting a minigun?
yeah,
You can for like, I think it's $300. You can get the mini spool gun that'll plug in, which is quite an efficient way of welding aluminum. It doesn't have the jamming problem because your spool is in the handle. Yes, it's a bit more you have to handle, but a mini spool gun is a really nice way of plugging in and getting aluminum work because the wire in the handle, the tube is shorter and you don't have the jamming problems.